Hello and welcome to the Basketball Soapbox. My name is Daniel Daly. Thank you guys for joining me. It's been a while since I did an episode, but I figured it was time, especially with NBA All-Star Weekend, to get back in the swing of things, and especially with one of my favorite players retiring, in Chris Paul, as well as talking about NBA tanking and how I feel about it, and basically NBA All-Star Weekend and how to fix it. Let's get right into it. Um, Chris Paul has retired. Chris Paul is one of my favorite players of all time. He's my favorite point guard, followed by Russell Westbrook of my era and guys I grew up watching. Of course, I have favorites like Magic and Penny and Isaiah and Steph and stuff like that. But Chris Paul was really the first guy um, that I could attach to and be one of my guys. Like I was very, very young. I was what, 13, 14 when he came into the league? And he was one of those first guys that I just was enamored with his play on the court and how he commanded things and how he was a point guard general and really putting things down in New Orleans together with his leadership and his play style, being super fast. But again, he was one of those guys that I first latched on to watching basketball. Of course, it was that 2003 draft class with LeBron and Melo and Wade and stuff like that. I Melo and Wade and March Madness and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, I was following these guys, hearing the buzz about LeBron. But Chris Paul was my guy. And when he came into the league in 2005. The argument was always between him and Darren Williams. I was a Chris Paul guy through and through. I knew Darren Williams went to the University of Illinois and stuff like that, and saw his run. Chris Paul in Wake Forest and stuff like that. But Chris Paul was just a different breed, man, and how he set up those the New Orleans Hornets at the time with Mo Pete and Peja Stojakovic and David West and Tyson Chandler. Um, just all those guys down there, and just seeing him build with that team and then seeing him in his first playoff appearance and then going up against the Spurs and taking them to 7 games. And people give him gripes for that because he was so young and stuff like that, but he didn't get the job against the defending champion San Antonio Spurs, who was basically a dynasty during that time, during the 2000s and 2010s. And just seeing his rise and how he played. And I remember in 2010 when he went up against the Lakers and took game one against Kobe and the defending champions. Um, just his way and leadership over the course of his career, being the perfect point guard, um, 12-time All NBA, 11-time All Star, uh, second leader in all-time assists and steals. You just got to respect a guy that's been like that, especially being a guy that's 6 feet, getting 9 All defensive team. That's up there with Gary Payton, Jason Kidd, guys like that on the defensive end. One of the best guys I've ever seen command the court, run the show. Just one of my favorite point guards of all time. I picked him all the time on 2K, regardless of the roster he had. And after his New Orleans days, that kind of went to shit. He went to the Clippers and started Lob City. They couldn't get over the hump, and it just seemed like they were always a player short, or Blake Griffin was hurt, or he was hurt. DeAndre Jordan couldn't play in the fourth quarter. I know people want to kill him. I believe it was 2014 when they went up against the Thunder. And I believe it was game 5 and had trouble in that series and stuff like that. And then you got the whole Donald Sterling thing in the Clippers. That kind of goes south. He goes to Houston, goes with James Harden, messes up his hamstring when that team had a very good chance of beating the Warriors. Falls short in that, tries to come back, they lose again. And then he gets to the finals in Phoenix. And that was kind of wait. First, before he got to Phoenix, let me get back to OKC and the Thunder. He goes down there and they had like a 0.6% chance of making the playoffs. He gets them in the playoffs and takes them to game 7 against the Rockets. And you think about his leadership about that. That kind of cemented that this guy is probably my favorite point guard of all time. Even before that and stuff like that, there's him and Russell Westbrook. But his leadership with that OKC team when they had absolutely no shot at making the playoffs during that time and to guide them to the playoffs. Just speaks to how he was, and then you talk about his professionalism down there, and everyone in OKC was like, "Yo, this guy really laid the groundwork for what they're doing now in terms of what Shea was saying, the teachings and stuff like that." Uh, it's just awesome to see. And then he goes to Phoenix, and he teams up with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, and they make the finals. And they were up 2-0, I believe, at the time, up 2-1, and that series just goes to hell. Giannis just becomes basically stamps his legacy with that championship run. And kind of ends Chris Paul's tenure there as the years dwindled down. Ended up in San Antonio, Golden State, and then ended up signing back with the Clippers. And they're thinking about what this team with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and Zubac and what they did the previous year before and how everything's good. Kawhi's looking good, everything. And it just goes to shit. Whatever happened between him and Ty Lue and the organization just went to shit. And Chris Paul, being at 40 years old, was kind of at the end of the road. He was in a trade with Toronto and getting released. And he was working his way to get back and get signed. Um, just as on Friday, February 13th, he decided to retire from the NBA via a post from Instagram. Just one of my favorite players of all time, seeing him play 20 years, 21 years, something like that. Just a consummate point guard. When you think about the point guard, it's going to show the point guard, Chris Paul. It's going to show Chris Paul. And especially those New Orleans years for me, that's why I use the picture above. Just a young kid in the league and just how fast he was and how in command he was and just how on both sides of the ball, just a dog. That's what I'm going to think about when I remember Chris Paul, just being a dog on the court, being an absolute professional, and just being awesome. Just being pure awesome, man. I love Chris Paul, man. Whatever he's going to do in coaching or NBA media or NBA management, hopefully he continues to do that. Something in the game. Because Chris Paul is a great mind in the game of basketball, and we'll see what he's going to be on to next. Let's keep moving on to tanking in the NBA. And I know this is a real beef with everyone, and everyone has an issue with tanking in the NBA, and everyone's trying to create tournaments and all this dumb shit for the NBA. Let's get something straight. Teams are tanking because they are bad. The teams that usually tank are not free agent destinations. Let's take a look here. The Washington Wizards. When you think about the last free agent signing they've had, think about it. Who signed with the Washington Wizards in our lifetime? I'll give you a second. Think about it. Bernard King, maybe. I don't even know what his transaction was, but he ended up on the Wizards. Ian Mahinmi, maybe. Why wouldn't you expect them to tank? That's why they are in the position that they are now, to tank and try to get some assets. First of all, great management of this rebuild after the Bradley Beal fiasco of signing him and keeping him on and trying to build around him. They took a swing and traded for Trae Young, took a swing and traded for Anthony Davis. And that's what these teams have to do because they don't have guys lining up in free agency to sign with them. So what do they have to do? They have to create opportunities saying, hey, we'll pay you in the free agent market when you're at your lowest, when you're injury prone, when nobody wants to give you a max contract. We'll give you a max contract. That's the only way of getting better. Taking swings like that to try to get somebody. Because free agents are not going to sign there willingly. When you look at that and look at what they're taking in the draft and stuff like that, you got Darren Peterson, AJ DeBanza, the Boozer's son, Fleming down in Houston. You got a bunch of guys that can actually help your team going forward. That's why they tank. Let's look at Indiana. They lost Tyrese Halliburton. What incentive do they have to win when they have their pick and can be in position to add a young player on a low contract that they can control underneath the first couple of years with Tyrese Halliburton when he comes back next year? What better situation than that? What incentive did they have to win without Tyrese Halliburton? Pascal Siakam doing all he can, and this team is 15-40. The best they would have done was get mid-20s at the best? How is that going to help them? The Brooklyn Nets are a clusterfuck. I don't know what they're doing. Tanking, they should be tanking. They got Michael Porter Jr. After the James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Durant fiasco. They should be tanking. That's the best way for them. Looking in the West, the Sacramento Kings are just doing it to themselves. If you thought DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine was going to lead you to the playoffs, kind of like they had that 6-week run a couple years ago with the Chicago Bulls, it's not happening. I knew that wasn't happening. I didn't like the DeMar DeRozan signing in the first place, and then they traded for Zach LaVine, and I'm like, this is just redundancy. They traded De'Aaron Fox. They still have Sabonis. Sabonis is like, I want the hell out of here. Nobody wants these guys, and it's just like they kind of did it to themselves, and they're kind of on the tank parade. But again, think of the last person to sign with Sacramento. I'll wait. You can't find a person that has signed with Sacramento that made a significant difference. DeMar DeRozan came in there. That's great. He wasn't going to move the needle. I saw him in San Antonio. We saw him in Toronto. He wasn't going to move the needle for the Sacramento Kings, even at that time, in my opinion. Even after the Beam team and stuff like that, he wasn't going to do it. But this team literally traded for Chris Webber back in '96, I believe, '95, somewhere down there, '97. When Chris Webber was with the Bullets and stuff like that, they traded for Mitch Richmond at the end of the Run TMC era. Think about the person who has signed in Sacramento. This team has made the playoffs one time since 2006. That was the Cowbell era and Arco Arena and stuff like that. It's been so long since this team has been able to build anything. They had DeMarcus Cousins and stuff like that. Didn't really build around him stupidly. Just think about that. There's nobody that in your lifetime that you thought has signed to the Sacramento Kings. Nobody. So what is this team is supposed to do? They're doing the right thing. They have the best tank odds right now, being 12 and 44. Continue to tank. And I think Zach LaVine just went out for surgery. That is what they're supposed to do. We go on to New Orleans Pelicans, the whole Zion fiasco, losing Anthony Davis. Excuse me. Losing Anthony Davis. What else are they supposed to do? I do think they should be trading Trey Murphy Jr. and Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. They should be trading those guys to get more assets. But Joe Dumars is going to live off that McQueen pick forever for him being decent, I guess. But they should be tanking. Nobody is signing to New Orleans. Nobody. They traded for C.J. McCollum. They had Drew Holiday at a point in time. They had DeMarcus Cousins. They had to make those trades and stuff like that. But that's the only way. So they have to tank. I don't understand this whole argument against these teams that want to tank. And then the Utah Jazz are the best experiment for me. They traded for Jaren Jackson Jr. They traded 3 first-round picks to get him. And people want to talk about the positioning of those draft picks. That's fine. But looking at what they had to do, they had Lauri Markkanen, they had Walker Kessler. They found something with Keontae George. Okay, let's keep building. They took a swing and traded for Jaren Jackson Jr. Brian Windhorst calls it pre-agency. Cool. I'm fine with that. But then you get into people getting mad that they're sitting their starters. Okay, I completely understand that. Playing in a game and then you sit your whole starters for the fourth quarter, it's crazy. That can get a little tricky. But when else are you going to do it? You're going to play them in the first half and then not the second half. You're going to play them in the first quarter and then that's it. I don't know where the gauge is, but I'm fine with that. Who's the last free agent that you saw sign in Utah? Who? Was it Al Jefferson? I think Al Jefferson might have been traded there from Minnesota. Paul Millsap, I believe, was drafted. Carlos Boozer on that unrestricted free agency where the Cavaliers let him out of his contract and then he signed there. So Carlos Boozer is the last great player to sign for them in their history. I think Tom Chambers came through. Chris Morris might have came through in New Jersey. That was back in the 90s. But think about that when you think about the Utah Jazz and their infamy. They had John Stockton, Karl Malone. That's it. Nothing else. That's it. Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. Both of those guys drafted. I believe Rudy Gobert was traded on draft day with the Nuggets and stuff like that. But when you look at their history, who was signing to them? The only way these teams get better is building through the draft. Look at OKC, building through the draft, trading for Shai Alexander, drafting J-Dub, drafting Chet Holmgren, drafting Lou Dort. San Antonio Spurs, Dylan Harper, Stephen Castle, Victor Wembanyama, David. How do you think these teams get better? It's not an accident. Now it takes a little bit of good management. let me get that out the way. It takes some good management to get that done. So you see OKC and you see the Spurs Collectively, they have networking between the both of them. Both of those teams have built those teams great. The Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic was found in the second round, but they got Jamal Murray, traded for Aaron Gordon, drafted Christian Braun, drafted Watson, Percy Watson, Peyton Watson. How do you think these teams get better? Houston Rockets and Ben Thompson, Alfred Sengun, Jalen Green at a point in time, Jabari Smith Jr. You have to draft these guys. You have to be in the lottery. These are how these teams get better. Detroit Pistons for the longest time, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren. Those are their guys. Thompson's win. How do you think those teams get better? The Boston Celtics, trading for draft picks. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. How do you think this is not an accident? The New York Knicks are a clusterfuck when you look at whatever they're doing. They basically traded for everybody on their team. That's a different story. Cleveland Cavaliers, also another different story, but they have Evan Mobley, had Darius Garland. So when people talk about this tanking and stuff like that, yes, it does take good managers to build around these teams, but you have to realize that tanking works. Getting draft position works. And then after you get the draft pick, you build around those guys. Those are why the top teams are succeeding right now. So when people are talking about the stupid shit with the tournament and stuff like that, and why would I expect these teams to go into a tournament, have a team that was fringe on making the playoffs beat the lower teams, and then expect the worst teams in the league to now win a tournament to get a high draft pick? That that doesn't make any sense to me. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Now we're expecting the Washington Wizards to turn around and beat the Charlotte Hornets, or beat the Atlanta Hawks, or beat the Chicago Bulls, or beat the Milwaukee Bucks if Giannis is playing. We expect the Sacramento Kings to turn around and beat the Clippers. The Sacramento Kings to turn around and beat Dallas. Like, I don't understand that. So now you're going to reward the teams that just missed the playoffs either due to injury or due to kind of like what the Mavericks did last year when they got injured and then all of a sudden they drafted Cooper Flag. Now we're going to reward those teams. I don't agree with that. There's a reason why those teams suck. There's a reason why those teams are bad. Bad management, bad skill set, chemistry issues, whatever the case may be. There's a reason why they suck. They lack the talent to win. So people need to really just relax on this tanking thing and realize that there's still good basketball being played, and that yes, you got some teams that are going to tank because that is a smart thing to do for those organizations and fan bases. If you're Utah, do you want Darren Peterson or the Boozer kid or AJ DeVanza coming to your team? I'm pretty sure they would love to get AJ DeVanza right now, especially with all the BYU and Danny Ainge and the Boston connects, the Massachusetts connects, New Orleans, Sacramento. Do we want those kids going there? I don't know. But those are the best chances for those franchises to turn it around. And I heard people say they should get rid of the draft and stuff like that. I'm like, no, because that's how you keep balance. That's how you keep balance in the league. In the NFL, we've seen it with Cam Newton, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, teams that have drafted guys in the draft and have turned their season around. That's what the whole point of the draft is. So I think people need to take a little chill pill on tanking in the NBA because I feel like there's a benefit to it. I know people are going to be upset about it at certain things, but we got to start being realistic. These are how these teams are good. All right, let's move on to the NBA All-Star game. Let's see here. All right. Now, the NBA is not doing itself any favors with the NBA All-Star game. They now have the U.S. Stars team, the U.S. Stripes team, and the Team World team. International players and American players. So there's supposed to be a U.S. Stars team facing Team World in the first round. And then U.S. Stripes face the winners of the USA Stars in Team World. And then the USA Stripes plays the loser of the first game, and then they get into the tournament in the last two players. Each game is 12 minutes. This is stupid. There's already been injuries. Um, Steph Curry, Giannis, and SGA are out. You got JD Bickerstaff, the Detroit Pistons, coaching the U.S. Stars team. You got Mitch Johnson coaching the U.S. Stripes team, and then I believe it's the Raptors coach. Sorry, I forget his name at the moment. Coaching the World team. Now, in theory, if you did a World versus USA game, that would make more sense. But then you have to keep the NBA voters in and stuff like that, and now have to vote. It gets complicated. There is enough talent in the league in both conferences to simply do East versus West. It doesn't have to be this complicated. And if you wanted to put stakes on there, I've been saying forever. Make it home court advantage. Whoever wins the All-Star game, the conference gets home court advantage. You don't think the top players are going to play for that? You don't think the top player? You don't think Cade Cunningham, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, LeBron James, Luka, all those guys are going to play for home court advantage in the NBA Finals when all these teams are competing? And I've said this before. I said they should make it a money game. And I know people don't want to have money and stuff like that, but I said throw money at the goddamn game. All these sponsors that you guys have, you guys can't donate money to an MVP pot. That would incentivize a first-time All-Star. That would incentivize a young guy trying to make his mark in the league. Put some money on the game. We already betting and all this other stuff in the NBA and stuff like that. Put some money on the game. And then that's really going to drive up betting because now we're going to bet who's going to be in the MVP conversation in the All-Star game. Put some money on the game. It's not a bad thing. We are where we are in the NBA. Ticket prices are high. Players are being paid a lot. Coaches are being paid a lot. TV deals up. Add some more money to the game. Put some pressure on this thing. Like, I don't understand why it has to be complicated. East versus West. Your best 12 guys versus their best 12 guys. Let's go. Let's start with this world. Let's stop divvying up the teams. And here's another thing. If you were going to divvy up the teams, wouldn't it just be better to have 4 teams of 6 players, have 1 sub? Wouldn't that be better? If you were building these teams, 2 West teams, 2 East teams, and then have the captains pick the top 4 people, the top 2 conferences, guys in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference pick their teams? That would be better. The tournament would be better. Rather than you having 2 teams play back to back and all this stuff, you're going to have a whole bunch of creators and celebrities there filling up the time. That was terrible. Let's not do that again. You don't have to make this difficult. I gave you the blueprint. Either East versus West, 12 versus 12, but home court advantage on the line, or you do 4 teams of 6, 2 East teams, 2 West teams, they play each other, East versus West in the finals. And then whoever gets in gets home court advantage. Whoever's the MVP gets $1 million. Not complicated. It's not complicated, NBA. You're doing all this stuff to get sponsors and stuff like that. I know you guys are trying to get into the streaming stuff because that's how you guys get a lot of your views. But just keep it simple. Doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to make it complicated. This is crazy to me how they're doing this. This doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Let's keep moving on. We got the slam dunk contest. There's a lot of things with the slam dunk contest that people are. Let me go over the participants. You got Carter Bryant, got Jackson Hayes, Keshad Johnson, and Jace Richardson. All these guys are young guys. I believe they're rookies. Either a couple. Jackson Hayes has a couple of years in the league and stuff like that. Actually, quite a bit. The dunk contest needs to be 4 people. Keep it on a rate of scoring up to 40, 50, whatever the case may be. Don't make it complicated. I mean, I know people are complaining about the dunk contest and how it's diminished over time, and it shouldn't be the main event, and how the 3-point contest should be the main event, which I'll get to in a moment. But the criticisms of the dunk contest is that there is so much dunking going on social media, on shows with Shaq and stuff like that, doing his dunk man thing. And all these people are saying, hey, get these YouTubers in the NBA dunk contest. Are you serious? Why would the NBA do that? Market somebody else outside of their realm to be in the NBA dunk contest. Now, if I'm running a business, does that make any sense of any equity, integrity into my league if I get somebody outside to win a contest for me? That's number one. Number two, when we're looking at these players that are participating in the dunk contest, the NBA dunk contest used to be the way that you made your name, you made your brand. Back in the day, when you had guys like Dominique, you had guys like Michael Jordan. When you won those dunk contests and stuff like that, you got your name out there. You got more sponsor dollars, XYZ. It's different nowadays. No one cares if you can dunk. Sorry, the NBA is different now. Social media is all over the place. There's so many people on YouTube, TikTok that do dunks, that specialize in creating dunks, that spend all their time not playing basketball, just doing dunks. So now you expect the NBA player who's playing multiple games in the season, you got to worry about winning games, you got to be worried about working on your craft, to now go in there and create dunks for the dunk contest. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. And the criticisms of dunkers, even back in the late '90s, I remember Dr. J. I believe he was on NBC at the time, and he was talking in studio, and he talked about how these guys aren't skilled. I think it was '99 season, late '90s, and he was talking about how guys are not skilled anymore. All they do is just jump, run, and jump. And you have all these criticisms in the media of these guys that just are athletic and can dunk. They can't shoot, they can't play within the game, they can't pass. So what happens? All these players start working on their handle, start working on their shooting, and the game evolves. Dunking becomes less important because guys have to now figure out how we're going to work within our team. How am I going to get better? How am I going to hold a role in the NBA? It's completely different on a different level. So now when we sit here and expect these guys to spend time creating dunks and everybody's mad at LeBron James and mad at all these other guys doing it, I said it before. Throw money at the situation. You're telling me in a couple of years ago, if you guys didn't go to John Moran, Zion Williamson, and say, "Hey, here's $1 million. Go in the dunk contest." You don't think that was on the you don't think the NBA can do that? But these guys are in such a different world where they have the sponsorship, they have the brand deals, they have the sneaker deals. They don't have to do the dunk contest. There's no incentive for them doing the dunk contest. That's why I say just throw money at it. Money to a charity, money of their choice, whatever the case may be, and make a donation. Do it that way. Get these guys, because all these guys have foundations and things they give back to and kick back to. Hey, win the dunk contest, here's $1 million towards your organization. Here's $1 million towards you. Something of that nature should work. That's not hard. So there has to be something the NBA can do with the dunk contest to save it. I wish these guys the best. I'm probably gonna go with shit. Who's Keshawn Johnson? I'll go with him for Miami. The judges are going to be Dominique Wilkins, Nate Robinson, Dwight Howard, Brent Barry, and any of Chris Lethal Shooter, Drewski, or Tyler Tony. NBA, stop doing this. Get NBA people to judge the dunk contest, please. Oh man, but that's how I would do it. Just throw money in. All right, now we're going to get into the 3-point contest. Probably the event of the weekend. Participants are Devin Booker, Colin Knupples, Damian Lillard, who has not played this season, but he's going to be in the 3-point contest. So, looking, I believe this is his point for 3-time champion. We got Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Bobby Portis, Norman Powell. 3-point contest, ironically, the event of the weekend. A shooting contest where everyone hates threes in the media and everyone hates threes in the NBA is the most entertaining thing of All-Star Weekend. The 3-point shooting contest. I'm going to go Bobby Portis is in the 3-point contest. He's shooting 45% of the season. That's crazy. Why didn't nobody trade for that guy? I figured he could help a team, but that's another story for another day. I'm going to call Damn, I'm gonna go Carson Double. That guy's shooting the ball pretty well this year, and I now I'm thinking in the shooting contest, he probably is the best natural shooter out of everybody. Jamal Murray's another guy, Damian Lillard, who has been practicing probably for a long time now, probably has a chance to win that as well. Let's go to the shooting stars competition. Now, this was a weird one for me because I remember this one years ago with all the incorporation of the WNBA players. I guess they couldn't ask the unrivaled players because they're kind of outside the NBA's control and stuff like that. So, looking at it from that standpoint, with the WNBA going well with labor negotiations, weird time to bring it back. Weird time to bring it back indeed. There used to be two NBA players, a retired player and a WNBA player. I thought that was cool. But we got Team All Star. Come on, NBA. Guys, these guys make millions of dollars in creation and advertising and all this stuff. And this is the best names you can come up with. Um, Team All Star, Scotty Barnes, Chet Holmgren, and Richard Hamilton. Richard Hamilton on this team. We got Team Knicks, Jalen Brunson, Carl Anthony Townsend, Allen Houston, one of the best shooters of all time. Um, Shooting forms of all time, I should say. Team Cameron, I don't even know who that is. I guess it's a celebrity. Whatever the case may be. We got Carl Knubble, Jalen Johnson of the Atlanta Hawks, and Corey McGetty. And then we got Team Harper. This is a nice touch here. Dylan Harper, Ron Harper Jr., and of course their father, Ron Harper Sr. That's dope. I like the idea of that and putting that together. That's dope. But I would like to see the WNBA players or unrivaled players get involved in this in some capacity because I think that's the original shooting stars. It was a nice event at All Star Weekend. I'm not against that. But looking at All Star Weekend, seriously, you don't have to make it complicated. You don't. It doesn't have to be complicated at all, man. Like I don't know. But that will be this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can catch me at the Soapbox Network on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube here, as well as check out the Ring Takes podcast, what we do with Brian and Lewis and stuff like that. And we just go over wrestling in WWE, TNA, AEW. And that's looking to kick back up. So thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Helps the channel. And until next time.